On this week's show, I speak to Karen Jerzyk, a conceptual portrait photographer from America. And this show was originally recorded as part of the my original podcast, but I think it's important to re-release that as part of my new podcast. So there is some difference in the audio recording, so you have to bear with me on that one. But here we go. Here's Karen Jerzyk. What's your story? Where did you start?
So when I was a kid, I was always really artistic, and when I was in like kindergarten, even, when I was like 2 or 3, I started drawing. And when I was in elementary school, my drawings were pretty good. But then, self-assessment as I got older and I looked around and I'm like, everyone's drawing better than me. This isn't, and this comes into play later, but it's like, I always self-assess, and I knew that I wasn't creating what I wanted to create with my drawings. I couldn't portray artistically what I was thinking. So I tried different things. I tried drawing, I tried sculpting, I tried painting, and none of it really worked. So I kind of, in high school, I didn't take a lot of art classes. I kind of was more into the videography aspect. And then I went to college and I was an English major, and I didn't really do anything with art. And while I was in college, I got really into music, like going to concerts and whatnot. And I was one of those people where I would show up like 10 hours early to a concert so I could be in the front row, and I used to sneak a camera in my pants so I could, take a picture and be like, look how close I was. And somehow that translated into me actually doing concert photography. And what I would do is I would go to like really tiny venues where they didn't care if you had, they didn't care what kind of camera you had, professional, point and shoot, whatever. And I started building up a portfolio of photos from concerts. And, over time, that portfolio, it gave me, confidence enough to actually ask for photo passes to bigger shows. So I pretty much started music photography. I guess that's how I started taking photos, is mostly just of bands, concerts, stuff like that. And then I started kind of like playing with Photoshop. That was around like 2003 when I started. Started playing around with Photoshop. Didn't know a thing about Photoshop. Still kind of don't.
Who does?
I probably only know like 10% of what there is to know. But I started kind of like messing around with that. And then in about 2009, after almost 2003, about 6 years of doing concert photography, I had a friend suggest to me to join Model Mayhem. I don't know if you've heard of that site, but I don't really use it now, but it's definitely a good starting point when you want to start shooting models and you don't, who do you ask when you want to start shooting models? You can ask your friends, but most of my friends are like, that's stupid. I don't want to do that. So I started shooting people in 2009, and I was terrible. If I look at my pictures from back then, I want to puke. I can't. It's embarrassing, because I didn't have any concepts. I didn't, it was like, hey, let's just meet up in this town and just randomly take pictures. And, you get the outcome is what you put into it. So back then I thought I was doing awesome. I was like, I'm going to do these really crazy angles, but I look at it now and I'm like, what was I thinking? So
do you plan your shoots more now then?
Oh, absolutely. I actually will not do, I am adamant that I don't repeat what I used to do in the past. And I don't like just going out and just on a whim shooting. I will do that. Usually I'll have a concept, and the location might not be exactly where I want it and whatnot, but I'll have a general idea of what I want to do. And it always works out better when I do that.
So
Sometimes
what form does that take? Do you sketch it down? Do you do mood boards? What's your...
I actually do sketch it, and sometimes I send people like really bad stick figure drawings of what I want the scene to look like, but it gets the point across, like I'll sketch out, if I know what the location's going to look like, I'll sketch out the room, and then just the stick figures of what I want it to look like, where I want people standing, just so they get like a general idea of what's going on. And it really helps because once you get there, it's more streamlined, and people aren't just standing there waiting for me to think of something. And that's the other thing. I don't want all these people in a room staring at me and me trying to think of an idea. It's stressful. So I always try to think of ideas and concepts well before the shoot.
Does that include what team members you're going to take with you, or do you have a general team that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. For the past like year and a half, I've been working with a clothing designer, Ashley Rose. She makes a lot of like really beautiful dresses and gowns, and sometimes I'll tell her an idea and she'll make wardrobe based off that idea. And I work with different makeup artists. Stephanie Strazier is one that I've worked with a lot. Also in the past couple years, the three of us make a really good team. And the nice thing about them, most of the people I work with, I don't work exclusively with them, but pretty much everyone I've always worked with, the really beautiful thing about it is, like I'll go to Ashley and say, the clothing designer, and say, hey, I have the specific idea, the specific place, and this is the model, and she'll actually make a piece based off that, and I trust her. I don't see what she's making. She lives about an hour away from me, so it's not like I'm over her shoulder watching what she makes, and she'll send me updates, every a couple times a day, like, hey, I worked on this. This is my progress, and I've never been disappointed with anything she's done. And same with the makeup artist. I mean, I don't know a thing about makeup anyway, so I'll just say, they'll say, what do you want me to do? And I trust their judgment, so I'll tell them, if you have an idea in mind based off the concept and the idea that I've come up with, please, feel free to do whatever you want. So I like doing that. I mean, I don't want to have full control. I do like having control of the concept and what things, what my part of it looks like, but what the other artist's part looks like, I actually really like when they have their own input. So I've
do you
been
think
really...
the collaboration side of things comes from your videography background? Because videography is very much a team sport.
Right, yeah, and it's like I think you really wear yourself thin if you try to micromanage every single aspect of a shoot. I mean, because essentially, and I say this all the time, I do want my photos to look like a still from a movie. So even though I'm not doing videography, I still want it to have a story. So I want people to look at it, and I want it to look like that one still was taken out of a movie. So it does get pretty theatrical at times, and I don't think I would be able to handle doing everything myself. Even though sometimes I do make, my own wardrobe, or I do my own makeup, but I actually don't like doing that all the time. One of the funner shoots I did was, we have this show over in the United States called Oddities. It's on the Science Channel, and this guy Ryan Matthew Cohen, he does a lot of he collects everything, just any kind of specimen in jars you could think of. It's all real. And I shot him and his wife in their apartment in New York City, and he did this amazing layout in there. They have a dining room, and I took a picture of them sitting at their dining room table. and he went out and he bought, he had a pig's head, he had an octopus, he had silverware made, and the silverware, the handle was actually tentacles to kind of match the octopus. But he did this whole beautiful spread on his table, and I didn't have to do anything for once, because normally I do that. I'm the one who sets everything up, and so that was actually fun because I could kind of just sit back and relax for once and be like, oh, this is nice. I just have to kind of, position the two people, but everything else was done for me. So yeah, it was nice.
I think it's fair to say that a lot of your work has a darker twist, sometimes with some humor injected in that. Would you say that's pretty spot on?
Yeah, definitely. Especially like my self-portraits. I have the dark part, and that comes from in 2011 my father passed away really unexpectedly. So I used before. It's funny because everyone says, I look at your portfolio and I can tell when that happened in your life, because it wasn't clicking, like up until that happened with my father, the whole emotional, like I was doing darker stuff, but the emotional part wasn't clicking with my work. And then, after that happened with him, I saw so many things differently in the world. And at that point too, I was actually using my photos for therapy. It was because I was having a lot of issues, and I was having trouble talking about all the issues I was having because of his death. And I was absolutely using my photos to kind of like get out, to show people how I was feeling. And it felt better for me. It felt better to go and talk to someone, because I'm not good at talking about that kind of stuff. So, and that was 2011, and as time goes on, you kind of, because back then I was doing a lot of like art, really, like fine art nudes too. I wasn't doing anything really theatrical, but the fine art nudes were just really like really thin people, just really desolate areas, and you could tell there was a real heaviness to it. And then as time went on, I started getting kind of more theatrical because I was healing. So you can actually see that, I think, in my photos. And then the self-portraits, the humor, that started because last year I had gotten arrested for trespassing, because that's, and it was actually on AOL in the UK for some reason. Like it was surreal, and it just became this huge deal. And so I got arrested for trespassing in August of 2014, and my court date wasn't until October 2014. So I had a few months where I had to like really be good. So, a lot of people can be really catty in the art world too. So I was reading all the comments, and, people were saying some really hateful things, like she needed to be knocked down a couple pegs, and, it's about time that finally happened to her. And I'm like, so there's all these people out there that want to see me fail. They probably hope I stop taking photos because this happened to me. So I was like, how can I shut these people up but still take photos? So I cleaned out this room in my basement, and I started doing the self-portraits, which up until that point, I wasn't even really doing portraits of anyone. All my shots were, wide angle shots in abandoned places. And so, yeah, I started doing that and just making a fool out of myself. I hate pictures of myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to hate the pictures of myself anyway. I might as well go all out. So I just, I'd scrunch my chin up. So I had like 5 chins, or like, just really distorted features. And it's funny. I was shocked that a lot of people actually like those better than my other work. So I kind of ran with that. But yeah, the portraits, I've definitely a lot of humor involved.
But still with a bit of a dark twist on them.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically dark caricatures of people I know too. I have one of someone that it reminds me of someone that's like, she gossips all the time. It's just always gossip, and just like, you got like that creepy uncle, or like it's basically dark caricatures of people in my life. So
I mean, it's certainly a good way to be able to turn around and use that as a way to say screw you.
Right, yeah, and that was the thing is, yeah, it's good because everything bad that's happened to me in my life, I have to say, like that getting arrested thing, with my father passing away, it's always had a silver lining. It's weird to say, but it's always been a blessing because it's changed what I do artistically. It's changed me as a person. So, I mean, when I got arrested, that was like the best thing that ever happened to me because I got all that free publicity. When it was happening, I was like, oh my God, like my mug, it was on the news, like the local news, and my mug shot was on it. And I was like, oh my God, I looked like a serial killer. I looked terrible in my mug shot.
Everybody always looks like a serial killer.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was bad. I looked like a man. I really did. And that was like some of the comments on the internet. I'm like, oh, I look like a man. But yeah, I mean it was like the best thing that ever happened to me because had that not happened, I probably wouldn't have started doing all those portraits and so there's always a silver lining. I mean, I don't want to sound, that everything that happens to everyone is always going to have a great outcome, but I mean, definitely if I could give advice to anyone, it would be, take everything with a grain of salt and run with it. If life throws lemons, make lemonade, it's that cliche saying, but yeah, it all worked out in the end.
I think a lot of the time the skill in being an artist is having the ability to turn those life events around and channel them into your work.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, when things happen to you, you have I feel like you only have two options. You can crumble and you can just quit and you can give up. Whatever giving up means, just stop, quitting your art, just anything, or you can run with it. And I'm the kind of person that I know if I don't actively go out and do things, I'm just going to sit at home and I'm going to get depressed. And that, especially after my father passed away, I was like, I need to get out there and shoot immediately. I can't just sit at home and let this, just eat at me. And that's, yeah, you gotta get yourself back up and just start doing it again, because with me, just moping around isn't an option, so yeah, it's hard, and some people do crumble, and I think that's kind of what the terrible thing about the internet is when people want you to stop doing something, they're going to keep jabbing and jabbing and jabbing, and if they want to see you fail, they're just going to keep taking digs at you. And you got to realize that, like I said, you can't give in to that. But that, once again, it comes with being an artist, and it comes with kind of getting your name out there. I realized that it's not going to stop. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. So I learned that I'm going to have everyone. You're going to have to deal with it. So that's life.
What's the end products of your work? Are they for customers? Is it personal work? Where does the money come in for you?
It's hard. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. I've found a lot of my stuff is personal work that becomes for customers, because what I found is, I mean, I don't know if this is true for where you are, but over in my area, I'm near the Boston area. I'm only like 4 hours from New York City, so I kind of go back and forth a lot. But it's really hard to find clients to photograph, especially, I mean, my work is so pigeonholed into being kind of dark. I mean, I can do, if you want, really glamorous, if you want me to take glamour photos, I'll do it for money, but I'm pretty pigeonholed into dark photos. So, a lot of people would look at my stuff and be like, no, I'm not. I actually shoot weddings too, every so often. I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do, but people trust me to do it. And it's not like I'm throwing fake blood all over the place and then shooting these people getting married. But that's kind of the thing with shooting a specific style, is people actually think that. The funny thing is, when I was shooting nudes a lot, a few years ago, when I was doing like just strictly nude work, someone had emailed me and they were like, hey, I was going to ask you to shoot my wedding, but I don't get nude for photos. And I was like, what are you why would you be getting nude for your wedding photos? Like it's weird, but people actually think that way. So, I definitely, like I said, I'm pigeonholed in a certain way. Now, the whole like trade work and all that, it's rough because I'll have the work that everyone sees on the internet, that I put on my Instagram, that I put on my Facebook page. That's the trade work I do, and that's me working with all the people I trust. Like I said, like
me as well.
Yeah, it's I know when I work with this model, we're going to get good results, and with the clothing designer, I'm going to get good results. And for me, it's hard for me to make money too, because it's hard for me to get paid and know that I'm not going to get a good result. Say just anyone off the street is like, hey, I want you to take pictures of me, but I want it to look like what you've already done. Well, a lot of it, I know it's my job to make the picture look like all my other stuff, but a lot of it, emotes from the model. If the model just doesn't know how to pose, or they're not into it, or it's hard. So I essentially make most of my money, I found through the years, through selling prints. And that's, when I take a photo, I always ask myself, is this concept I have in this photo something that someone would purchase? Is it something that they would hang on their walls? But yeah, it's really hard for me to get clients, to just take portraits, or, because I'm not really doing really standard stuff. So most of my money is made selling prints, and it's hard. There's some months that are really good, and some months no one's interested. And I think that holds true with really any artist, with any medium.
Most of mine comes through from commercial work for hotels and things like that. So I understand exactly what you mean about having your personal stuff and putting that out there and people seeing you for that. But I still get the other jobs as well come in.
Yeah, I absolutely, with doing stuff like you're doing, it's like, at least you're working in your field. At least you're making money off taking photos, and that's hard for me, because like I said, I shoot very specifically, and admittedly I'm not a very technical photographer, so I probably, unfortunately, wouldn't be able to do commercial type shooting unless I would have to take some pretty extensive courses, because I normally shoot with available light, or natural light. Most people like calling it available light. I've been using really cheap lights for like the portraits and the self-portraits, but other than that, I don't think technically, I don't think I would be able to shoot commercially. But I wish I could. If I could do that and make money, it's to support myself.
It's more a case of, if somebody waves some money in front of me, then I consider the job.
Right. No, yeah, exactly. But it's even better that it's, but it's even better that you're using your camera for the job. It's better than working retail, or, it's at least a job within it's an umbrella of where you want to be. So
yeah, like you, I also shoot weddings as well.
Yeah.
It's literally a case of, if somebody puts money in front of me, I consider it.
Right.
Because times are hard.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I wish people. I have plenty of people asking me to shoot them. Plenty. But it's just baffling to me sometimes when. I just wish everyone, if you're a person that wants services from another person, whether you want to get a tattoo from someone, whether you want to go to the grocery store because you're hungry and you want food, you need to give someone money if it's something you need and something you want. Basically, if you want someone's services or you want someone's goods, ask them the price, ask them the rates. I would never approach, like me personally, I would never approach a model that I really wanted to shoot and just be like, hey, you want to shoot? Knowing that that model accepts payment, that she's a working paid model. And the same thing with me. I'm shocked at, I get emails all the time. Hey, I want to work with you. But they never ask rates or never ask how much it would be. And it's just really weird because I think everyone assumes that I'm going to do it for free. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, aren't they thinking, how do I live? Like, how do I pay bills? How do I, when I want something and there's a price on it, I'll pay the price. And
it's just pushing a button, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just funny to me. And then, sometimes I'll tell people my rates and then you don't hear back from them. And it's just, I don't know. It's a never-ending cycle, and it's hard. But
see, yeah, my theory has always been we've done it to ourselves. Because that, with the proliferation of digital cameras and everyone being a photographer, there's been a race to the bottom to be the cheapest, and we've taught the customers that it's okay to pay a little bit rather than actually value decent work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's actually one of the reasons why I got out of concert photography is, first of all, I'd go to concerts and people they would have photo passes and they would be using iPads and cell phones. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. But, it's when I'm in my late 20s and then you have a 15-year-old whose parents just bought them, an SLR camera. And now this 15-year-old is getting photo passes. Them getting photo passes is the greatest thing in the world to them. And, the 15-year-old is more apt to, if they were contacted by a magazine and the magazine says, hey, we really need a picture of that band member for, a specific guitar company. Do you mind if we use that picture? The 15-year-old just being inexperienced. I mean, anyone can do this. I don't want to trash on teenagers because but, typically when you're young and inexperienced, it's like, oh my God, a magazine wants my photo? Yeah, you can have my photo. And they just give them a photo. And it's like, for a guitar company, for a full page spread, you could be charging, anywhere around $1,000 or something like that. And they're just giving it away. And it's like, by them doing that, then everyone realizes, oh, hey, we just go to the young ones or go to the inexperienced ones and just, get the photos from them. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we did, like you said, it's definitely, and that has been the culture is, everyone going. And the funny thing is the photos aren't always the best, but yeah, they're either free or they're the least expensive. So, oh yeah, absolutely. It's been just a vortex just sucking everyone into this black hole of not getting paid.
See, a lot of people blame it on the new photographers, and it's never been that way for me. It's been that race to the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's new or old guard when it comes to photography. If you charge less, you'll teach people that it's okay to pay less.
Right, absolutely. And that's the thing too. I mean, we can't, I do hate when people are like, oh, it's a newbie and, all that kind of, it's like, there's always going to be people doing things for the first time in life. I mean, there's not going to, the first photographers didn't die and then everyone couldn't take photos again. It's like, yeah, it's just a culture. It doesn't matter when people started taking up photography. It's just the culture there has started, like you said, with just the age of digital cameras. And that, that started in probably the early 2000s, and then just started going downhill from there. Because now everybody has an SLR. I mean, everyone has a quote unquote good camera, and it's just like when when you need a plumber, and you hear that person say, "Oh, my brother's a plumber, he can do it." It's like, well, your brother's not a licensed plumber, so he may or may not do the job well. And I think it's been that way for other jobs too. Like I said, plumbing, electrical, that's always a fun one. Oh, my brother knows electrical, and it's like, but yeah, it's definitely, the culture has come around to photography, and
it's very prevalent with the music industry as well. When MP3s started to come out and the emergence of Napster and iTunes and things like that, because I come from a music background as well. Previously I was a nightclub DJ and producer and audio engineer, and all the same arguments are in the music field as well. So you've got analog versus digital, you've got old versus new people, and then it all got upset after the Napster, and everyone now thinks that music should be free.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Even movies now. I mean, you can literally download anything, movies, music, pictures, and it's kind of scary to me, because at what point, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to love getting records and CDs and cassette tapes and actually holding it in my hand and looking at the artwork. And I'm the kind of person that I read books too. I can't read a book on a screen. But yeah, it's scary because it's like, where is the money to be made? Yeah, even in music, how do these people make their money? It's not touring. I don't know how it is over there, but our gas prices are, right now it's okay. But I mean, our gas prices since like 2008 have been pretty steadily through the roof. So these bands,
ours are generally about double yours.
Oh wow. So yeah, that's terrible. So I know. I mean, I wonder how these bands make money. I think that they make money off merchandise. I feel, because you can't wear a digital shirt. Like and that's about, I think that's their only saving grace. But once again, bringing the artistic side into it is you have to create merchandise that people want to buy and wear. But other than that, I mean, when these bands tour, like you said, everyone's downloading their music for free. They're just hemorrhaging money and gas when they go on tour. But they're selling merchandise when they go on tour. So I think that's, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, the digital age is a scary thing to me, and it's getting worse, and it's good and it's bad at the same time. And I feel like a lot of people don't use it for good.
I mean, one of my ways of moving forwards is if there's been a roadblock in front of me, I've always gone and created my own path. So in the music industry, I actually created my own record label, and I still get the occasional royalty check coming. Mm-hmm. And for every download that comes down from iTunes, a record label gets roughly 52p. So that's $50.
Yeah, I mean,
and then that's got to be split between the record label and the artist. So you look at these artists that go number one, they're doing that on about 10,000 sales, and out of that they're probably getting maybe 4,000.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, because even with photography, it's kind of disappointing that even magazine sales have significantly dropped, because no one's, and even around where I live, no one's really buying newspapers either. It's all digital, and I don't know at what point. And that's the thing, it's going to take someone having to just revolutionize something. It's everything becomes the same thing until and it's hard because it's like, well, what hasn't been done yet? How can I make money? And I feel like it's all been done, and it's it's all hopeless to make money, it's hard,
The flip side of it is there's a lot more creative freedom now, because those blocks that originally told you what you should be listening to, they're practically gone. It's the same for the photography side of things. There's no rules anymore, which is how the likes of you and I can create what we do.
Yeah, I mean, but because of that too, not to be a glass is half empty all the time, but it makes there's a bazillion more things to look at out there now. It's like you really got to separate yourself and reinvent yourself, because it's funny, like when I look through like Tumblr or whatever, all the photos look the same to me. Like there's like groups of photos. It's really weird. It's like you look at the photo and it's really good, but you can't differentiate between who took it. When I look at the photo, it's not just one person's name in mind. It's, oh my God, like a billion photographers shoot this way, and it's really good. The photos are excellent, but it's like the same kind of filter and the same kind of concept. And it's like, despite this being really good, I mean, it doesn't really stand out because everyone's doing it. And it's weird. There's just like these little pockets of photographers that are all kind of shooting exactly the same way. So it's not that they probably don't even know who they are in relevance to each other. It's just that because there's so many photographers out there, shooting now, that it's going to happen. Like there's just like a lot of repeating. And
you certainly managed to maintain, definitely, it's one of your images when you see one of yours.
Yeah, and I try so hard to it's funny because I try to change up what I'm doing if I notice that, especially in my area, if I notice that people are kind of doing the same thing or setting their shots up the same. That's when I see that and I pay attention to that, and that's when I say to myself, it's time to kind of try to do something different. And which is good, because I don't want to keep repeating the same thing over again. Like for a while I was doing like kind of like levitation stuff, and then a million people did it before me and a million people will do it after me. But I just I was like, I'm playing this out in my work, and a lot of people in my area are doing that, so it was time to think of different things. So, but yeah, I try to separate myself without it being too over the top, or, I don't want it to look like I'm trying too hard to be, too different. And it's hard. And that's what separates, being successful or just kind of getting lost with everyone else. And I think that's what we all struggle with, and you kind of, as you move up the ranks, you have to, I'm not really very business minded, but in terms of seeing, am I overplaying this? Am I doing something that everyone else has done a million times? I'm a huge advocate of self-assessing. And if I sometimes have to step back and look at myself and look at my work and say, is this on the level I want it to be on? Do I need to start thinking of different things, or do I need to move on? And I think that's really important to succeed. And I see a lot of people kind of, always patting each other on the back. Like in these photography forums, you post something and you really get no feedback. I mean, I don't think people should be really tearing into each other, but a lot of the times it's like, oh, that's great, that's awesome. And they don't even say what they like about it. It's just words like excellent, great, awesome, and that doesn't really help. And
I tend to like extremes. You know,
Right.
love it, awesome. Hate it, awesome. Like it, I've failed.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, even in terms of criticism, I love criticism. I even, when I go in forums, and even if I see someone speaking badly of my work, like really bad, like they're talking and they don't know I'm going to see it, kind of bad, and maybe they do know, and
Can't escape the trolls.
yeah, exactly, the trolling. But you know what? Stuff like that, though, there is truth to what they're saying. Um, and it definitely, I've taken some of those really hateful comments, and I've taken all just the meaty parts of it and thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? Even this person is being incredibly mean. There is something to say about what they've said. I mean, they're saying it, so they obviously thought it. They're just adding an extra twist of meanness to it. But yeah, I mean, even people can be pretty harsh on the internet. But yeah, I mean, in terms of criticism, people got to pay attention to it, and I think the issue is if someone, if someone says your work sucks, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, that doesn't really help. But if they say, I've gotten
Tell me
before.
why.
Yeah, no, exactly. And they can be mean when they tell you why, but I think a lot of people turn their back on that, and they're like, oh, they're just being mean. They're just, like you said, they're just trolling or whatever. But I think it's important that you don't turn your back on what they're saying. I mean, yeah, you can know that they're being an asshole, but that doesn't mean that their opinion doesn't count. So yeah, I just think self-assessing is really important, and knowing where you stand, just in the world of art and what you're trying to create and what you're trying to do.
I mean, sometimes the best people to get criticism of your work from are the people that you know are going to hate it.
Absolutely.
They hold no loyalty to you whatsoever. It's definitely not their style, because then you can actually pick out the points as to why. If you want to make it a little bit more sort of commercially viable.
Right.
Why do you hate it? I know you hate it, but why?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's and that's the thing. I don't want everyone to look, and if anyone thinks that everyone is going to like whatever they produce or like them as a person, I mean, no one likes everything, and it's crazy. So I definitely, I don't want everyone to look at my work and be like, oh, I love that. I mean, it would be nice, but yeah, when people are, like you said, when they're a harsh critic, it helps in, I think it helps with development too, because if you go home and you think about it and you really turn it over in your head, it can really help you progress with your work. And I actually always say, if I don't look back on my work from a few months ago, if I look at a photo that I took, let's say 6 months ago, and if I can't find fault with it, or if I don't want to look at my work even now and be 100% content with it, because if I'm 100% content with it, that means I'm admittedly not trying to, reach the next level. It means I'm happy with what I'm doing, and that I feel like there's no room for improvement. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to look at my work and not be fully proud of it. And it's funny because
that's similar with me as well. I hate almost everything over a year old.
yeah, no, exactly. And but it's funny because sometimes I do go back and I see a photo that, for a span of time, I was like, oh, I hate that. And then I look at it again, I'm like, I think I like that again. So it depends, but it definitely, I think it's, I tell that to people about hating my stuff, and they're like, that's not healthy. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it is. It's not, I'm not depressing with myself with it. I'm just picking it apart because I want to progress. I want to get better. And if people don't do that, how are you going to get better? Like I said, if you're always 100% happy with where you are in life, I'm not saying be miserable constantly and and hate everything, but I mean, you have to find fault with some stuff sometimes so you can, kind of get ahead. So I think it's important.
Well, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes it depends. You're talking to me, so.
So you mentioned before about your father having a massive influence on the dark side of your work. Where else do you draw your inspirations from?
I've always felt pretty alienated just growing up. I just never felt like I fit in. I got made fun of a lot in school, so like I always have this. I kind of think where that's the comments I get about my work a lot are people look at it and they'll be like, "That's beautiful," but it's so dark. They're confused, not in a bad way. They're just like, I don't understand. Like I'm looking at this photo that looks almost horrifying or like a nightmare, but there's something like beautiful about it too. And I think that's just me not really feeling comfortable with myself, but wanting to, like, I can portray how I want to feel. So my photos are kind of like how I do feel but how I want to feel at the same time. So, just feeling really uncomfortable with myself, but wanting to feel beautiful, I think comes into play. And just other than that, I mean, I read a lot. Movies are a huge influence.
Do you have
Music.
any favorites of the movies? There's a certain movie that I have in mind, which I always think of when I see your images.
Man, there's like probably 10 movies that are huge influences. I love Eraserhead. I love The Shining. Anything Stanley Kubrick, David Lynch. God, I'm drawing a blank. Wes Anderson. Anything by him he's ridiculous. I watch his movies and I'm just like, how did he even think of this? Like, I like watching movies where if you were to just pause it on any given spot, it looks like a picture. Like it looks like an actual picture that you would want a print of. Terry Gilliam. I love Terry Gilliam. But like when I was growing up, I watched a lot of like kind of. I'm 34 years old, so I grew up in the 80s. So when I was a kid, like Labyrinth was huge. I watched that all the time. There was a movie Legend that Tom Cruise was in that I absolutely loved. But what movie were you gonna say?
The one that always springs to mind when I see your work is actually Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah, Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't believe I forgot to say Tim Burton. Yeah, oh yeah, Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
When that movie came out and Edward Scissorhands, that kind of embodied, like, I remember being a kid. I was probably only, I think I was like 8 or 9 when that came out, and I was like, oh my god, like, and that's the thing, that movie was so bright and colorful and beautiful, but it was like really dark too, and like he felt alienated, and I was just like, yeah, that was like definitely one of my favorite movies. Oh yeah, Beetlejuice is amazing.
It's got a very similar look to some of your images.
Yeah, and I loved Beetlejuice because I'm into comedy too. I really like comedy, so that was like the perfect darkness and weirdness and comedy, which they're actually making a second one. I can't wait. But yeah, movies have a huge influence on me, way more so than photographers. Like I really like Francesca Woodman, Diane Arbus, but I don't really know like the photographer culture a lot. For me it's mostly cinematic type influences. So, and music too. Like I listen to music all the time. I always have headphones on. So even in my car, like depending on the song, like I'll be listening to a song and constantly playing scenes in my head for some reason, which I'm surprised I haven't gotten in an accident. I'm probably like blacking out when I'm driving, not just blowing through red lights.
Do you have a specific song that you play for editing when you're retouching?
my taste in music right now is so just everywhere. For the past like 10 years I've just been listening to like metal and hardcore and just really heavy stuff, and usually I listen to that kind of stuff when I'm like editing, but I listen to like all kinds of weird stuff. There's a band that they're from like the Boston area called the Acacia Strain. Really dark, really heavy music, and I love listening to them. And they've been consistently really good musicians for, the past, what, almost 15 years now. But that's the thing. I've lost interest in. I don't know. I don't really listen to that much heavy music anymore. It's hard. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. I'm like, oh, I'm getting old. I don't like the same stuff. But it depends. I don't know. I still like stuff that kind of has dark sound to it. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to that.
So, when I'm creating my work, I quite often, if I'm working for a week or so and then I stop, I crash. Just emotionally, everything just drops. Would you say that you suffer from the crash, as I call it, or?
Absolutely. It's funny. I've never heard anyone like say that before, but absolutely. And I've said it to people before. Like I have a few friends that are photographers, and yeah, like they'll just be like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything. And I tell them, I'm like, let's plan a shoot, because then you have something to look forward to. But absolutely, I don't feel accomplished. I feel like worthless in a way if I'm not shooting, because I mean, really, that is all I have. I think about it. I'm like, well, I don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't a photographer. I'd be absolutely miserable. I feel like I would have no worth in life. So yeah, when if I don't, I shoot, I probably once or twice a week, heavily concepted shoots. So yeah, if I go 1 to 2 weeks without shooting, which I think I'm going about a week without shooting because I'm not going to be here this weekend. I actually have a gallery I have to set up in, Washington D.C. So it'll be about a week or so, and yeah, so probably by Monday at this time I will be completely depressed. But no, I absolutely feel the same way, because I mean, people who aren't artists don't understand, like, it's almost like us not eating or not drinking, or we just need it. And I don't know how to fully explain that, but I understand. It's just, yeah, it's even when that happens to me, I try to at least write down ideas or sketch out ideas, so I'm at least actively sort of doing it. So even though I'm not shooting it right away, I'm in that creative. That's the thing. I feel like I always have to be in a creative state, or I'm just nothing. If I'm not creating or even thinking about something creative, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing or what to do with myself.
For me, that's the time when I recharge my creative batteries. So I'll just go on massive film missions and just watch lots and lots of movies. And I'm more movies than books, so I just have movie after movie after movie and watch it twice. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, I do. It's funny because I do the exact same thing, and it's good. I mean, that's the thing. You don't want to constantly be shooting, or you don't want to constantly be creating, and at too much of a, if you're doing like 5 shoots a week, it's like I feel like it would be too diluted. So even though I hate those periods of time where I'm not doing anything, I think it's necessary, because like you said, you're recharging, and you're kind of slowing down, and you're taking a breath, and yeah, it lets you, instead of you creating, you're indulging yourself in stuff that other people have created, which is important, because you don't want to completely shut yourself off from the world because all you're doing is focusing on your art, because then that almost becomes obsessive. Which I, every so often I do, and it's like, oh, I gotta stop. And I feel like when I do that, like I said, my work gets really diluted. And normally if I'm pumping stuff out and I do like 5 photo shoots a week, and I only like one of the shoots. So yeah, but no, I think it's definitely necessary to kind of take, not a ton of time off, but take time off to, like you said, kind of indulge in other people's work.
The sales of Ben and Jerry's ice cream goes up around that time also as well.
Yeah. Oh, you have Ben and Jerry's over there? They started in Vermont, which is
I prefer Haagen-Dazs, but
yeah.
Ben and Jerry's are nice.
Oh yeah, this is like Ben and Jerry's country where I am. Like the Ben and Jerry's, the actual like main plant, is only like 2 hours away from me. It's awesome.
That would just be evil for me.
Oh yeah. No, it's really bad. I can eat a pint. I can kill a pint in like a half hour, probably, or less.
Well, we're almost at an hour, so what I'll do now is I'll wrap up. So, where can people find you? So
I'm on Instagram. My Instagram name is K Jerzyk Photo. My last name is spelled Jerzyk. And then I have a website, KarenJerzykPhoto.com. And I'm also on Facebook. I think if you just search Karen Jerzyk Photo, you can find me on Facebook. But yeah, you can also find like my arrest record too if you do a Google search. Here's a fun fact. If you Google video search photographer trespassing, the entire first like 3 pages is the video of me on the news, by the way. So yeah, if you do that, you can find me, which kind of sucks, but
okay, so that's great. Thank you for coming onto the show, and I hope lots of people come and view your work, because it's definitely something to look at, and I certainly enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you.